You know, one of the most needed features and one of the best introductions to help you in forecasting your retirement success has been the introduction of the Monte Carlo simulator in a software package. Now, I'm a Bolden user. I'm also an affiliate, and Bolden has incorporated a Monte Carlo simulator that's just really heads and above many other versions that I've seen out there. But when I started to dig into exactly how it generates its chances of success, I started to read on Reddit forums that people were very concerned that they were not hitting 100%. In fact, I would equate it like they were thinking it as a test score and that anything less than 100% is failure. Well, this video is to tell you that that is certainly not going to be the case. It's also, I want to show you some information that will probably recondition your thinking about the 100%. So I ran my own criteria through Bolden, as well as my own retirement agent AI called ETA. Both of them came away with around a 95 to 96% score. So the question I had was, should I be concerned about that 5%? And the answer is no. And I'm going to show you why, because 100% is actually a bigger concern than 95%. My name is Vincent. I am a do-it-yourselfer retirement planner. I do it for myself. I make these videos because I love doing it. This topic is just such a fun topic and I love to share it with you. I do a lot of this research for myself, but like for example, this video, I'm actually just showing you the things that I discovered that I wanted to share it with you in hopes that maybe it's going to help you recondition your retirement plan and maybe you can incorporate it into your own ideas of how you want to retire. Today, I want to show you why chasing that perfect 100% could cost you years of your life, and why understanding that 95% gave me the confidence to retire. First, let's talk about Monte Carlo simulation and what that actually means, because this is critical to understanding why 100% really shouldn't be the goal. And here's what Bolden told me, that's straight from their explanation. Instead of assuming a fixed return every year, we run 1,000 different scenarios with randomly varying market returns, some good years, some bad, and everything in between. So think about that. Not one optimistic projection, not an average, 1,000 different possible futures. In some scenarios, you might retire right before a bull market. In others, you retire right before 2008 or 1929, or something we've never seen before. And for each scenario, we project the portfolio through retirement. If you end with $0 at, or more even, at your longevity age, that counts as a success. So if you make it to age 95 with even $1 left, that's considered a success. If you run out at 94, even if it's $1 left or less, it's considered a failure. So your chance of success is simply the percentage of those 1,000 simulations where you didn't run out of money. So 95% means 950 out of those 1,000 really worked out. 950 futures where everything worked out, where 50 you needed to make adjustments. And that's really the critical thing here that needs to be taken away. It's an adjustment, it's not a failure. Now here's the question. This is what you need to consider about the 5%. Should you spend 3 more years working to protect against those 50 scenarios? And that is something that we need to investigate. Let's talk about what it actually takes to go from 95 to 100%. In my analysis, going from 80 to 85% was about 6 more months of work or about $5,000 in reduced expenditure. From 90 to 95%, it meant a full year's of work or about $12,000 in reduced expenditure. Now, where things get really more interesting is from 90 to 95. That was about 3 to 5 more years of work. So let's think about that a little bit more closely. Is it worth it to trade 3 to 5 more years of your healthiest retirement periods for in your 60s when you still can do things like travel and do physical activity, and also to really enjoy life to its fullest, all to sacrifice to protect the scenario, which would never may ever come up. In fact, one of the worst situations was the Great Depression. That's what we're talking about. And here's what really matters most. Those early retirement years are not the same as the later ones. Your 60s are not like your 80s. The things you can do in your 60s where you have greater mobility and better health and better physical dexterity, those things are going to be far different in your 80s. So I look at it in terms of value of years, 60 to 65 being like your high mobility, you're the healthiest, you have most energy. 70 to 75, you have moderate activity. 75 to 80, you have lower activity. And then finally 90 to 95, well, I think you get the picture. So chasing 100% success is not really just being conservative. It's trading your most valuable years for protection against a scenario which may never really happen. In fact, to me, that's not really being prudent or conservative or cautious. It's just fear-based decision making. Okay, what about those 50 scenarios where you run out of money? Shouldn't we be afraid of those? Let's look at what 5% in a Monte Carlo simulation actually includes. Those aren't just bad years we're talking about. Just imagine the impossible. We aren't testing for a bad year, we're testing for a double 1929, retiring into the Great Depression and having it happen again 20 years later. We're simulating triple 2008 level crashes in one retirement, or sustained periods of negative returns that have never occurred in any 30-year period in market history, or a sequence of returns risk so severe it makes headlines worldwide. So here's my question. If we get scenarios worse than the Great Depression, worse than 2008, or worse than anything in recorded market history, is that really what we need to be worried about? Is that really going to be our biggest problem or your biggest problem? If the financial system is collapsing to levels that break your retirement plan in the worst 5 to 10% of scenarios, we're talking about fundamental breakdowns in society. Your neighbors are struggling. The economy is in shambles. And here's the thing. Even in those scenarios, 5 to 10% worst cases in history, most retirees who paid attention and made adjustments, they survived. The real question isn't if those scenarios happen, it's what will I do when those markets are bad? And that brings us to something Monte Carlo simulations just completely ignore. Okay, I need to clarify something important about these Monte Carlo simulations because there seems to be a common misconception. I've heard people say, Monte Carlo assumes you're like a robot and that you withdraw the same amount every year no matter what. Well, that's not entirely accurate and not at least with what I've been using. When I analyzed my own retirement plan, I used two different approaches. First was EDA. It's my custom AI retirement agent. I think I've mentioned it a few times in the past, but I specifically configured her to model what I call risk-based dynamic guardrails or withdrawals. And that means that in good markets, I take out more. In bad markets, I take out less. Either way, my withdrawal strategy is always adapting. The second tool I use, or second way I think about withdrawals is using Bolden. And what Bolden actually does, rather than try to explain it to you, let me just read you what they said in their documentation. Your cash flows come from your plan and are independent of the Monte Carlo math. If there's a funding gap in a given month, it triggers a withdrawal based on your withdrawal order. So the actual amounts can change month to month depending on the timing of income and expenses. All right, what does that mean in English? Well, what it means is Bolden isn't assuming you withdraw like $60,000 every year like clockwork. It's actually modeling my actual cash flow needs month over month. So real expenses, real income. Some months you may need more, like $3,000. Other months you may need $8,000. Some months maybe only Social Security is going to take over and you don't need to withdraw anything at all. But both tools are modeling something closer to reality than this concept of a robot withdrawal would suggest. Now, here is where Monte Carlo does not address, and that is the human adaptability concept. See, humans can adapt to the situation, and that's what these tools are supposed to provide you, is like a lookout to a possible event. So the simulation is not going to assume that you can do part-time consulting. It doesn't model that you can do Social Security later or strategically. It doesn't account for the fact you may be able to get liquidity through like a HELOC or, I don't know, some other mechanism. Maybe you have, I've heard things called SB locks. It doesn't know that you can cut your discretionary spending beyond what the model is suggesting. It just takes what it knows. And it doesn't project, obviously, these one-time windfalls. So say, for example, you know that you're going to get inheritance in the future. You just don't know how much. When Bolden shows a 95% success rate or 95% success chance, that's after modeling realistic variable cash flows. And when ETA models similar numbers, it's after modeling dynamic withdrawal strategies. That 95% number isn't testing whether I'm a robot. It's actually testing whether the plan works, and even with reasonable flexibility already built in. And here's the beautiful thing about what the Monte Carlo does, and that is you get years of warning. I'm not running these simulations and then just forgetting it after I get a number. I actually monitor my portfolio day in, day out, and I run the numbers periodically over time to constantly refine what those adjustments need to be. So for example, if I'm in year 3 and I'm tracking towards the bottom 20% of the scenarios, well, I have to make the adjustments then, not when you're 20 years in or not when you're at 0. And this is why this 90 to 95% number gives me a lot of confidence. And that is because it's not testing a rigid, flexible, inflexible plan. It's testing a plan that already includes dynamic withdrawals that adapt to markets, variable cash flows that match real life, and reasonable flexibility is already built into it. Then on top of that, I have additional human capability or adaptability that no simulation can fully capture. It wouldn't know. So when people say Monte Carlo is too pessimistic because it assumes you never adjust, actually modern Monte Carlo, the ones I'm using, can model adjustments. And even when it does, it's still conservative because it can't model those human creativity opportunities and real-time decision-making that you can do when you have something in front of you. The 95% number accounts for me being smart. And I can even be smarter than the model assumes. All right, let's get real for a moment, and let's just make a comparison and show what 10%, 5% actually really means in the real world. So you drive a car, right? Did you know that chances of dying in a car is 1 in 100 or 1%? Getting into an airplane crash, it's like 1 in 10 million. Here's an interesting thing to think about. You probably bought a home, but did that stop you from buying it when you know that the value could possibly drop by 50%? That actually happened in 2008. So why are we treating retirement planning any different? Why do we demand 100% certainty for retirement when we accept far worse odds in everyday life? And I think it's a behavioral issue. It's more because losing money feels scarier more than it really is. Running out of money feels catastrophic. But remember, you also have Social Security, you have flexibility, you have other options. Heck, getting married has about a 40 to 50% failure rate, depending on how you measure it. But we don't not get married because of that. So there's a lot of decisions we make as people or human beings under uncertainty all the time. We accept far worse risk values. So retirement planning really shouldn't be any different, and we shouldn't hold it to like these impossible standards that really don't apply anywhere else in your life. So let me bring this home. Bolden gave me a 95% chance of success. ETA gave me something similar. That means 950 out of 1,000 possible futures, I would be absolutely fine. The other 50 just means I need to make an adjustment. And by the way, that incorporates the worst crashes in market history, or anything in history, I should say. But what do you get by accepting 90 to 95%? Well, you get to live your retirement now, and I get to do it in my 60s when I can still do everything I want to do. You know, I get to do gaming, I get to do physical activities, travel. I love jujitsu. I love to do things with my cats. My children and family are very important. You get to do all of your personal things, the things that are important to you now. But what's the alternative? You could work till 65, 67 to get 100% because you want to be perfect, but you'll be giving up 3 to 5 years of your life, all to protect against a scenario where truly it means that the financial system is in utter disarray and in complete collapse. So which would you rather choose? I'd rather choose to live. So if you're using a Monte Carlo simulator and it's showing you, say, 85 to 92%, that's not just a warning. It's probably very optimal. If it's showing you 100%, that's a problem. That's the real red flag. It means you're either being way too conservative
Out of control.
or the numbers are completely off.
It's infinity pool.
Understand your
I'm gonna
numbers.
have to get in here.
Understand this concept of flexibility and define what that could look like. And then have the courage to actually retire. One of my close friends was forcibly retired at 62, very bitter about it because he was forced out of the organization. Looking back now, it was the best decision in his life. It's funny how blessings come in disguises. So yeah, I hope this really helped you understand Monte Carlo. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to learn more about how I analyze my retirement plan or how I'm using Bolden or ETA, please leave a comment below because I would really love to hear from you. And if this helped you in any way, hit that like button and subscribe. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a Division II raid that I need to get to.